Every man behind you lives his time. Now Jesus will down to the aim. Swing the yellow jackets to a watery grave. If the man starts to weaken, that's a shame. The man was looking greener, 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 crimson flame. Fight on, fight on, fight on, men. Remember the rules will win. Roll on the victory. It's your time. Traditions of our pride, Brentwood time.
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now, the four-way test of the things we know, say, and do.
That's close.
Number one.
Is it true?
Number two.
Is it fair to all concerned?
Number three.
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
And number four.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
All right, today we have a lot of visitors, and so I'm looking around. First of all, we will start. Where is Miss Velda? No. Velda, where did you end up sitting? No. Oh, there she is. We have Velda Eugenius from Gadsden, Alabama, as a visiting Rotarian, and I'm going to ask her why she is visiting our club today.
I'm visiting. Hi, everybody. Roll Tide. Had to do that. Sorry. So I'm here visiting because I've been in Brentwood working for 3 years. Isn't that awful? And I am a Rotarian, and I haven't been in Gadsden going to the Rotary Club, so I feel really badly to say that. But I'm here today. I'm going to start a new chapter for myself, attending Rotary a little bit better. And yours seems like a really good fit for me, so that's why I'm here today. Thank you.
Well, we'd love to have you join us. Thank you, Velda. And back here, starting to get his iced tea and water, we have another visiting Rotarian. Back again, Steve Hewlett. Steve, would you like to say something?
I want to say hello. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Okay, we have several folks that brought guests today. Jack Basari.
In Brentwood now from California.
It's Tish's second visit. Okay, Larry Fast.
My guest today is Cindy Reed. Jan and I met Cindy at church and found out. You're not here? Right in front of. And she's also very good with microphones. She's the director of nursing at Harmony of Brentwood, where John and Virginia Stokes are, and she knows them thanks to Jan and I. And so last Sunday, Sarah and Jan and I kind of put the heat on her. She needed to come to Rotary and check us out. So she's giving us a good look today, so everybody be on your best. Thank you.
Jennifer Bourne has a guest.
Can you hear me? Okay, good. All right, this is Edmund Voorhees. Ed is a good friend of mine and my family for as long as I can remember. And he owns Citrus Solutions, which is a carpet cleaning company in the Nashville, Brentwood, and surrounding area. And I invited him to come and join us today.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
And a very special guest for Don Robbins.
Special. Absolutely. My wife is with us today, Michael Ann.
I'll make sure he does a better job next time with your introduction. And as a very special ending to this announcement, I would like to say we need to wish someone a happy birthday today. Sheila Cleveland, happy birthday to you.
Thank you, Betsy, and welcome to all of our visitors and guests. Eugenia, Steve, Tish, Cindy, Ed, Michael Ann, glad to have everybody here today. If you're visiting for the fun of visiting, great. Anybody that is interested, has a greater interest in Rotary and specifically this club, any one of the members at your table can tell you more about it. So glad to have you all here. Sarah gave me a list of announcements to make here today. First quarter invoices have gone out. If you have not paid your Rotary bill, do so before you leave the room. Actually, you can pay online, or you can see Drew if Drew is here today, and you can pay by credit card, but hopefully get those all paid before the end of the quarter. Reminder to all committee chairs to please get your committee meetings scheduled for no later than September. I think some of last year's committees are still trying to schedule a meeting. But Sarah would like to see this year's committees meet not more frequently, but at least once during the year. We do not have a club meeting next week, Alan. That is the Friday before Labor Day, but you are still scheduled to do the pledge and four-way test, by the way. So, that is the Friday before Labor Day, so no meeting next week. Today is Dress for Success Day. Everybody, or many of you, have dressed according to your chosen universities. That is good to see. I know we are a diverse club. We've come from many different backgrounds, many ethnicities, different countries, different states, but more than anything else, different allegiances to different universities. So if all at once everybody would just give a shout out to their particular school, then we can all hear it. 1, 2, 3. Rice. Thank you. There's a benefit to having the microphones. And now, to introduce our speaker, Kip Dobson will be here. Kip, thank you. Oh, I forgot one more thing. Happy Bucks, Keeley Hall. Kip, sit down.
All right, we are going to talk about who's happy today. So it's great to see all of the college apparel out there. For those of you who are not aware, I went to Pepperdine. My freshman year was 1992. That's right. Yes, thank you, Santa Monica. Pepperdine, 1992. And since 1992, the Pepperdine Waves have not played a single football game to which I did not wear this exact outfit. Look it up. It's true. All right, who's got some happy bucks today?
The final event for Brentwood's 50th is October 10th, Brentfest at 6 o'clock. Tickets go on sale tomorrow morning. There will only be a limited number of tickets. They go on sale at two places, either online at 10 a.m. or at City Hall from 10 to noon. So if you want tickets to Brentfest, October 10th, Super T will be there. It'll be a lot of fun. Get your tickets tomorrow. They'll probably sell out by the end of the weekend. Oh, what website? I was like, on your internet. I was like, on wherever you want to be. Online at BrentwoodTN50th.com.
Who else is happy?
Wife and I could not be happier. I'm a new fan of the UTC Mocs because we dropped my oldest child, Morgan, off at UTC. Young lady worked incredibly hard, got herself into the honors college, and her mom and I could not be happier.
All right, we got a Buckeye.
I'm going to be happy that Ohio State will win the Big Ten, so I'm putting in $10. And I'm going to challenge those UT fans to put in some money to support Ohio State in 8 days so that Lane Kiffin can lose even a bigger game against Ohio State.
All right, any rebuttal from University of Michigan fans? Oh, all right, here we go.
I expect you to have a rebuttal lined up, Chief Goss. And I did just hear Super T. That's amazing. I can't imagine how old he is. I've got to leave, so if anyone does want to pay their dues, raise your hand and I'll come around and I will make sure to collect those payments. But you will not see me after the meeting, so please raise your hand and I'll come do that. Thanks.
Chief? No? Okay. Kip Dodson. Raise your hand if your child's new football team has to play Clemson, Alabama, LSU, and Georgia all in the same season.
Texas A&M's like automatically eliminated. They have to play the top 4 teams in the country. I'm happy because I already paid my dues, Drew. So thank you. And I guess I need to get some money out too. Yeah. But I am happy because my daughter has become one level lower than whale shit on the bottom of the ocean as a fish at the University of Texas A&M and a Corps cadet. And so they have a chant that says, I got promoted one level higher, and I am always 100 times smarter than any University of Texas grad.
All right. Who else do we have? Who's happy? A lot of people are happy. Our favorite Richmond Spider is happy.
I gotta give a shout out to Go Spiders on Mr. Johnson's behalf and mine, and I understand we even have a prospect possibly headed that way. I did not know you were Go Spiders.
That's amazing. What other room in the city of Brentwood has 2 spiders in it? Don't answer that question.
Got a rotobuck once for you to tell you that I enrolled at in Belmont in class of fall of 61. So compared to 92, I think you said. And the other rotobuck is that some of you will remember that on the Saturday morning of the pancake breakfast, I brought my oldest granddaughter with me. She had gotten up and she said, "Where are you going, Papa?" And I told her, "I'm going to a Rotary pancake breakfast. You want to go?" And she came. She's still talking. I was in North Carolina last weekend, and she's still talking about what a great time she had and what great people the Rotary Club is. And she has on her cell phone now, the picture that's on her cell phone when she turns it on is she with 2 clowns, Rotary clowns from the breakfast. Might have been one of y'all.
There's $1. Thanks, Brian. He gave me $1. So he went to UT. Yeah. So Steve over here is on the board of trust at Belmont. And I was just going to say my son has started classes at Belmont. And Steve, you guys are killing me on that tuition stuff. So
who else is happy?
I put a couple dollars in. I want to thank. It's amazing what Connectors Rotary is. But Jared Tanksley gave me a call over a week ago and was like, "Man, turn on Fox." Imagine that. Life, Liberty, Levin's on, and they're talking. And Jaco Borland is talking sex trafficking, and so he was talking about that. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to kind of research about this, so I could contact him. Thought I'd never hear a thing from the guy. I had a conference call with him yesterday. When I got here, I just got off the phone with his assistant. We have booked Belcourt Theater for January 14th for a red carpet event for his movie 8 Days, and it will be hosted by Rotary. And so it's going to be really fascinating. The theater holds 332 people. We'll have a stage. We're going to have people from Homeland Security and a couple other people on our panel, and it should be a really awesome event. So just really excited that it just takes somebody reaching out with a phone call and me just following up, and things happen. So it was been a really fun last couple of days to see what goes on.
Just want to say that I continue to be very proud of my Oklahoma Sooners. They always have the best team money can buy.
$1 for past President Michael. Glad to have him back. I welcome him back by right off hitting him on the shoulder that he got the surgery on. So consequently, I'll be missing the next couple.
We're going to travel. The homecoming committee got together and chose the best outfits for the day. There were a lot of good people dressed up really nice, and we appreciate that. But we did a category. So from the Big Ten, the winner of the best dress, Rick Finke, stand up and show what you got on, Rick. Show your colors. Attaboy. Good job. Thank you. From the SEC, and I hate doing this, but when you wear red and white shoes to go with your shirt, Burt Bradford, best dress from the SEC. Show them your shoes. There you go. And lastly, from the small school category, with a long sleeve shirt and a hat and proudly talking about the Spiders, Greg Irvin. Thank you, Greg. Oh, and thank all of y'all who dressed up.
All right, we still got some more happy people, so I'm coming around to you. Gil, we got you next.
I've got you all beat. My son went to Mississippi State, graduated from there. I have two daughters. One of them had a soccer scholarship at the University of Alabama. Her boyfriend transferred to UT, so she transferred. There goes the scholarship. And then she decided to come back and graduated from our local university in Murfreesboro. My other daughter went to the University of Alabama. Her boyfriend was a basketball player, and he went to Tulane. She transferred to Tulane. So on any Saturday, I'm going to have
All right. Anyone last happy buck? No, we're done. Back to you, President Stand-in.
Thank you very much. And now the man whose primary goal is to ensure that Linus must always edit the program before it goes out online, Kip Dodson.
Our speaker today is a Southerner born in Asheville, North Carolina, moved later to Charlotte, North Carolina, and then 33 years ago moved to Nashville. He was born and raised a Southerner. His soul forever imprinted in his heritage. That means there's a story in everything he sees, and he tries to tell it in the resulting photograph. Tradition, loss, hope, tragedy, family, and foolishness, all the themes we are drawn to in the best of Southern literature, historical and fictional. He offers the viewer a glimpse into the lush mosaic by looking at images. He also often accompanies his photographs with written expressions, short stories, essays, poems brought to the surface by his own contemplation of the print, collected, exhibited around the country. He is published in books, magazines, and newspapers, and his newest book, A Tennessee Portrait, just published here in October, this past October, is the result of 2 years and over 10,000 miles of wandering around the back roads with a camera and a pen in hand. Through photographs and short stories, portraits offer a unique combination of images and words to anyone who appreciates heritage, beautiful scenery, and a good yarn. Please give a warm welcome to author and illustrationist Jerry Park.
Thank you. Thank you, Kip. And thank you to Jennifer Bourne for inviting me. And she's been very gracious. She said, because you all aren't meeting next Friday, I can talk for an hour instead of 30 minutes. So you might want to get up and go to the bathroom now. Well, it's sort of like at home. I've said hello to a lot of old friends here today, the Robinsons and Dick Bowers. We go to church together, and Dick's at least one person in here that's seen this thing before, this presentation, so I apologize. And he bought the book, which is a great example that you've set for all your fellow Rotarians. When I finished shooting for the first book, which is Slow Roads, Tennessee, and that's the one I talked about when I was here 3 years ago. That last day, I pulled into the garage, wrote down my odometer reading, and turned the engine off. And I did that with really mixed feelings. I mean, I was glad to get it finished. I'd driven 11,000 miles on that book, went to every county. But I knew I wasn't finished with it from a passion standpoint. I didn't have it out of my system. So immediately I began to think about going back, which is exactly what I did. I went back to all 95 counties. This time, whereas in the first book, I only had one shot per county. And I did it with a little $30 plastic camera, film camera made in China. It gave a look that I really liked. It was kind of a timeless look. It was warm. It wasn't quite sharp and focused. And When I go out in the country, that's the way I feel when I look around there. The country really doesn't change. Most of the advances in society and technology and education happen in the cities, for good or bad. And if you're tired of that, just go out, go for a ride, because the country will do that for you. So we're going to see about 30 pictures today, and then I will read parts of a couple of the stories that are in this new book. That is not a photograph. Oh, it's me, isn't it? Hello. I didn't read the instructions. Well, this is kind of what it's all about, is what's around the next curve or over the next hill, or if you come to a stop sign, what happens if you turn left? What happens if you turn right? It's the mystery of the road that just keeps us going. I retired in 2007, the end of the first quarter. I was so excited. To this day, I'm excited. And never looked back, never missed being at work. And I was so excited because I'd just gotten into photography, and now I could spend all this time. So the first day, that Saturday, retired on a Friday, I told my wife, I'm going out, I'm going to go to Burgess Falls. So I drive up there, I make that quarter of a mile walk down to the falls. Who's been up there, Burgess? So most of y'all know that path is elevated, and to get down to where you can really see the falls really good, you have to kind of go down this hill. So I decided I wanted to get a real good unencumbered shot. So it's pretty steep. So I get on my rear end and my heels, and I start sliding down the hill. And then I'm not trying to slide down the hill anymore, but I'm still sliding down the hill. And I knew what awaited me right at the edge of that escarpment. It's about a 100-foot drop, all rocks and all that. And I'm thinking to myself, 24 hours. I was retired 24 hours. And then I died. Fortunately, I was able to reach out and grab this little skinny bush, and it stopped me, and I worked my way back up. But a good thing almost came to a quick end right there. I shoot beautiful scenery. I shoot things that are typical, and I shoot things that are not typical. I shoot things that are kind of weird and interesting. And so this stopped me. You know, why would you put a hobby horse or a carousel horse on your light pole? I don't know. But as the afternoon sun hit it, it lit it up. And I just liked the way that looked. This is Carl Brown. He was sitting right there on the side of the road, and I rode right past him on difficult road. And there wasn't an easy place to turn around, so I kept driving. And I kept driving, and I'm thinking all the time, now why don't you stop talking to the guy? And of course, every second that passes, you get further away. You know this feeling. You wanted to turn around, but it just seemed like too much work. Well, fortunately, after about 3.5 miles, I came to a stop sign, which forced me to stop. And I turned around and I went back, and I'm so glad I did. Carl was sitting there because right down to the right there is his field of hay. And a buddy of his, they'd already rolled the hay up, and a buddy of his had his tractor down there with a forklift on it and was picking up those rolls of hay, coming up to the road and taking it over to Carl's barn. Well, Carl didn't have anything else to do, and he's a retired cop, so he's doing traffic control on difficult road there. I don't know, with the lights, yeah, that's great. Yeah. Yeah, I forgot to thank Linus, but none of this stuff would happen without Linus. The color of the sky that day is what I shot. I mean, yeah, the chicken's there, but it was really about the color of the sky. It's kind of foggy, and that fog had grabbed some light from somewhere, and it was so unusual. Church ladies. These ladies were from the Apostolic Pentecostal Church of Ridgely, Tennessee. And they were up there enjoying a good Saturday, sitting under their umbrellas, fishing at Reelfoot Lake. And all the little girls were out there with them, running up and down that boardwalk. But they had a bunch of teenage daughters. They were all in the van listening to rap music. I mean, why waste a good day in the van on Sunshine and Lake, Reelfoot Lake? I was out shooting with a buddy over Eastern Part State, and he said, man, I got to go to the bathroom. So we see this pizza place. He said, over here. So pull over there, and he goes in. About 4 minutes later, he comes back out. He opens the door and he says, get your camera. We've all heard of beer and pizza, but I'd never heard of deer and pizza, but there it is. Sort of speaks for itself. Wouldn't you love to see that guy? No, that's not right. No, that's not right. This is why it's so much fun going out and doing this project, because you see this stuff all over the place. What a beautiful spot to get married. Unfortunately, they don't use it as a church anymore, because I'd love to worship in a church like that, but wouldn't be bad to get married there either. I was fascinated by these two guys. I watched them for quite a while, and they never looked at each other, but they always knew where each other was, and they were kind of covering that river between the two of them, back to back, moving up and down the river. And if you grow up in the country in Tennessee, you're probably going to have a fishing buddy. And if you're real fortunate, when you grow up, you've still got him. And it could be that it is true that the bark is worse than the bite, but I wasn't going to test it. Because for a little guy, he was loud and he was mad and mean. And you see all over this state, you see posted no trespassing, do not enter, violators will be prosecuted, signs everywhere. We're all proud of whatever it is we own, even if it's a junkyard. And so there are guard dogs everywhere. But this is the first guard cat, and the only one that I ever saw. He's a good guard cat. You can't see him, so he'll just jump right down on top of you. But he looks exactly like one of our two. That is still an active post office. And in the back of the building is a little tiny 2-table meat and 3 place. I think there's 37 people in Laconia, and they got to have a place to eat lunch. So you come down there to get your meal, and get your mail. Now, this was just begging for a story. Kip mentioned that. Thank you. Kip mentioned that these pictures generate stories within me. And when I saw this, I mean, it just wrote itself at that point. So I'm going to tell you the lead up to the story and then read a part of it. It's too long to read the whole thing. But it's about Francis Dominski. This young man, his parents were from New Jersey. They were Catholic. And they moved down to Tennessee for better jobs. And they moved to the country. And they raised Francis. But there's no Catholic church. Pretty typical for the countryside of Tennessee. But they were devout, and so they raised Francis up to understand Catholicism and Christianity, and he was a believer and a staunch believer. So he graduates from high school. He moves out, also in the county, to a little house, a little 2-bedroom house, and goes to work for the tire company. He's working there about a year, and they come to him and they say, we're going to send you up to Akron with a few of your friends here, your colleagues, for a week's training. So he goes up there, and he's on the bus going over to the training facility one day, and they pass this Catholic church that's being sold. And there's a big sign there, the auction that Wednesday evening for everything that's in there. And he thought, that's sort of interesting. So he makes it his business to get that afternoon off and go over to the auction. And one of the things they auction is this statue of Jesus that used to sit up in the apse. And he wins the bid. So statue's about this high. So he puts him in the back of a car. He rents a car, puts him in the back of a car, straps him up real good. Got to put seatbelts on Jesus. And at the end of the week, he takes him down, unstraps him, and puts him on his front porch. His idea is that people will ride by his house, see that statue standing there, and get real curious and ask him at the tire plant, what in the world is that about? And he can start talking about the need to have a church. That's his plan. So we'll pick the story up right there. One morning as he left to go to the plant, he locked the door, turned to say good morning to Jesus as hadn't become his custom, only to find to his shock, Jesus was gone, stolen. Someone had taken Jesus away. Who in the world would come up on a man's porch and steal that statue? And why? He had to get to work, but all the way to the plant, he thought about where he might begin to look for his missing statue, beginning that afternoon when his shift ended. Well, the whistle blew at 4, and Francis set off on his search, driving around town, past all 3 schools, out to the lake, to every church he could think of, until way past sundown. He reluctantly called it a day and headed back through town toward home. There he was, on the corner, under the streetlight, not 40 feet from the entrance to Stump's Brew and Q. Stump's, where the community's menfolk of all stripes had gathered in the evenings for years to lift a pint, run a rack, and in too many cases, put in another night of ruining their marriages, families, and lives. Francis's first reaction was to grab the statue, put it in the car, and take it back home. But something told him that would be the wrong thing to do. That maybe this wasn't just his statue anymore. That maybe something or someone else was involved now. That maybe Jesus wound up here for a good reason. Stump's business began to take a hit. The regulars were calling it a night after just 1 beer, maybe 2 at the most, heading back to their families. Some were pulling into their normal parking spots, but upon seeing Jesus, and after sitting there for a moment with the engine idling, putting it in reverse and heading for home, their throats dry as a bone. Well, this went on for weeks, and everyone knew what was behind the change in behaviors. It was that statue. But Stump, despite the financial straits it put him in, couldn't bring himself to move Jesus. Heck, no way he was going to even touch him. Then just as suddenly as Jesus had appeared, he was gone. Except he wasn't really gone. He was just moved, or moved on his own, over to Rotary Park, where the Industrial League played its summer baseball games. When the teams, the umpires, and the crowd showed up that next Thursday night, the word flew around the stadium to look just beyond the right center field fence, just beside and beneath the scoreboard. Jesus was facing home plate. Now, he was no talisman that when gazed upon would produce miraculous athletic feats. No one pitched any better that night. No one hit homers where they normally produced only singles. What did happen, though, was that no one hollered at the umpires from the stands. No one booed opposing players or cheered when one got injured on a hard play at second base. Managers discussed contested plays with the umpires in a civil manner. No one was tossed from the game. Fans were nice to each other, and the volunteers manning the concession booths were more courteous than anyone could remember. On the way out of the parking lot, drivers yielded way to the other guy. It became the summer of civility at the park, all the way through to the last game of the season, when it was quickly noted, before play ball was shouted, that Jesus had disappeared. The next night, a special session of the county school board was called to try to solve the growing emergency of teachers all over the county threatening to walk off the job because of low pay and overcrowded classrooms. Both sides had been feverishly searching for a solution for months to no avail, and tonight was the big showdown. The new school year, scheduled to begin in a week, was in serious jeopardy. The tension could not have been higher. But as school board members and parents and teachers descended upon the high school, a sobering sight met their eyes. There he was, standing on the concrete pad that circled the flagpole facing the parking lot. Every attendee had to walk right into his gaze and right past him to get into the building. And this goes on, and then it has an ending that I hope you'll find interesting. Okay, why doesn't that want to? Jesus doesn't want to leave. There we go. Thank you. And there is a story that this inspired too about a woman whose son, she lives away out in the country, who has one son, and he was born with autism and pretty bad case of it. And fast forward a few years, the school principal has visited her and asked her not to bring him to school anymore. Even the folks at church have said that it is a problem, that they are sure she would understand. Her husband blames her for it, so life is miserable for her and lonely, very lonely. She looks forward to Thursdays because that's her wash day, and she gets to go out and do something with her hands and be outside. And she's out there one day, finishes and turns to leave, and looks out in that field, and there's a little girl, raggedy, dirty, hair all messed up, standing there just staring at her. First person she's been around for a while. And she thinks, don't move, don't move, don't move. And they stand there for a while, and finally the woman begins to approach the child. She turns around and slowly, she doesn't run, but she walks all the way out of the field into the woods. And so the woman prays all week that next Thursday the girl will be there. She goes out, and sure enough, the girl is there. And then it develops from there. Yes, there are facilities devoted to tractor pulls. And of course, it's not just a man thing. Women go, and so you have to have the facilities for the woman. And here's this girl sitting on a Jane Deere tractor, and there's the ladies' room. Well, if we have a C in Tennessee, it is lost for sure. I always wondered, where did that term come from? And what you do, you get you a boat, build a house on top of it, and of course, you got to anchor it good. Never can tell when Noah's going to come back and that thing takes off. But not that one, it's not going to move. It is actually down, it's in Houston County, which is right on the river, Mississippi. I'm sure they had this totally figured out, and that's how they would explain it. This is actually a photograph taken with that little plastic camera. So this is one that was left over from the first book. I put one photograph from this junkyard in that book, but I love this one too. And there's a story about that encounter with the guy that owns this junkyard in the book. That looks kind of cool. Looks kind of Tom Sawyer-ish, Huck Finn, but I don't think I'd get in that water. I don't like snakes. If I can't see it and I feel it, that's not a good thing. I also wouldn't get in that water, but for a totally different reason. I don't want to get fried, but somebody obviously did. Most newspapers are in trouble, as everyone knows, and most of the small towns out in the counties are down to one day a week. And in many cases, several county newspapers are owned by one entity. And that's the case here. Down in Centerville. Don't you love that? Handwritten sign. Oh, that's great. Two years ago, I went to over to England and spent a week in Wales studying under a Photoshop guru. And I'd seen his work on the website, and he uses light and actually creates light where there really isn't light. This was a totally gray day. There was no shadow, very dull picture. But using some of the techniques that he showed me, it made it a different shot. Now, these guys probably gathered at the coffee shop first thing in the morning and drew straws. And we know who the shortest was. The next shortest is the guy standing at the bottom that's going to get hit if he falls. Yes, that is the only church and only. I love symmetry in my photographs when it calls for it. And that weed, that scrub tree couldn't have been placed. Michael Ann's a photographer, so she knows what I'm talking about. Right between those two doors. Very cool. And you better make up your mind in a hurry because you see those bullet holes. They're all over that. Don't go on the levee by yourself. I did, of course, so don't do as I do. That's a place, it's lonely out there, and there's no law enforcement anywhere around. There's so much I loved about this scene. And there's a story in the book about the first haircut, and all you daddies know what I'm talking about. And the mother gives strict instructions about how much to cut off before you ever leave, and you better come home having done a good job of it. But that, I think that fellow on the left is his granddaddy, brought him in there. But you can't beat a American flag for a barber's apron. This is our last photograph and the second story. This was over on a greenway in Murfreesboro, and the roof was gone. And when I stepped inside of it, it was amazing. So here's the story. They'd been pals since before they could remember, Mason, Christopher, and Landon. Kindergarten, preschool, now fifth grade. The hours after school and on Saturday afternoons would typically find them involved in some sort of frolic or benign mischief. It was one of those days, and they were out exploring the forest that began at the end of the street, the back of their neighborhood. Mid-afternoon, they came to the end of the wood and upon an abandoned farm in the bordering field. The trio wandered through the farmhouse, the main barn, and a couple of outbuildings. And about 50 yards past the barn was an old silo. Mason spied the door first and dared the others, "Come on, guys, let's check it out." When they had all ducked through the low doorway, they were immersed in a light so brilliant, so impossibly white, they could hardly keep their eyes open. They looked up and realized there was no roof. A wooden ladder was attached to one side, reaching from the ground upwards and disappearing into the light. Although no air was stirring, a soft whispering whoosh began to build. It seemed to come from all around them. Terror-stricken, they dove back through the door and tumbled out into the field, and as they ran away in full-fledged panic, Christopher stole a quick look back over his shoulder at the silo and was stunned to see that it had a cone-shaped roof on it, just like any other silo. The ethereal sounds had disappeared. Everything seemed normal. It looked normal, exactly like it looked before they'd gone in. He stopped running, called for the others, and cautiously made his way back to the door. His hands shaking, he opened it ever so slowly. He was horrified at the prospect of sticking his head in and looking up, but he must. And sure enough, when he did, that great presence of light had descended down over the maw of the silo just like before. He backed out a few feet, looked skyward. There was the roof, still in place, the heavens still overcast. Trance-like, he glided to the edge of the woods where his rattled companions had stopped and walked right past him. They turned and followed, and no one said a word. The next day, the three friends agreed that what they'd seen no one would believe, and scary as it was, they were fascinated by it. This was not something that you could experience and then just forget about it. They decided to keep it all to themselves. From that day forward, their courage back intact, they returned to the scene whenever they could, and every time the wonder repeated itself. On the outside of the silo, all was normal, but when they would open the door, the light was always there. Visit by visit, they became more relaxed in their private mystery world, more casual with the accompanying danger. Now they stayed longer, even talked freely in there, though it seemed like a holy place, deserving of reverence. One Saturday, as they were eating the lunch their mothers had packed for them under the trees at the forest edge and gazing at their magic tower, Landon said what all of them had secretly been considering. I'm going up. I'm going to climb the ladder. No one spoke. No pleas to not do it. No dares to go ahead and do it. Back inside, Landon started up. Keep talking to us, Landon. Holler down what you see. And then hold on up tight to that ladder. As he neared the cloud, Landon declared, almost there. First his head, then his body, and finally his legs and feet were swallowed up by the white. A few seconds later, he shouted, wow, it's incredible. And we have to stop there. Thank you. I'll be back over there with the books if anyone would like to purchase one. And before I leave, Larry, I just want to say I appreciate the shirt you got on. And say it with me. I'm a Tar Heel born, I'm a Tar Heel bred, and when I die, I'm a Tar Heel dead.
Jerry, hold up just a second here. Linus, would you get the ladder and turn my spotlight back on, please? Thank you very much for being here today. It's always interesting to take that road less traveled. You may have traveled on the highway to hell, but in that last picture, I think you found the stairway to heaven. We have another book here. We believe in literature as well, particularly as with yours, literature with lots of big pictures. We would like you to sign this book. We read this book to Alabama football players every week. And we also have a pen as a gift for you. It's not this one. This is mine. Your pen is in a bag in the closet, and I forgot to get it out. But we'll hunt around for it if you would. But if you would sign this, just sign your name where it says speaker, and we will include stories about you when we read. A few last comments in closing. Next week, Alan? Yes, I'll be here. Good. But the rest of us will not be. No meeting next week. If you enjoyed the meal today, if you enjoyed the time with friends, the excellent program, if you think you have friends that might enjoy this as well, please bring your friends to Rotary. We always like having visitors and guests. One last thing, please remember to put up the tables and chairs before you go. And I think that is it for me.
Real quick, we bought a whole bunch of soft drinks for today, and I see a few people have them, so there's a bunch of soft drinks. I don't want to take home. Please don't make me take them home. In the coolers over there, grab one or two and take them with you when you leave. Thank you.
Before I started, I asked Larry if he had any announcements, because he always has announcements. He said no. And that's the second announcement you didn't have today. So If there's nothing else for the good of Rotary,